Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, Cedi records one of its strongest weekly performances on the interbank market, gaining 5% against the US dollar in just 5 trading days. Also coming up, Finance Minister Dr. Cassie Olatufosin in Washington, D.C. for high-level economic engagements as the IMF World Bank meetings get underway this week. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for being with us. Details coming up. All right, that was your look at the currency market to begin with. The Ghana Cedi recorded one of its strongest weekly performances on the interbank market, gaining 5% against the US dollar in just 5 trading days. But what's fueling this sudden surge, and can it last? There's more in the following report.
Based on our engagement with some of the major commercial banks, the development has been influenced by recent regulatory and monetary actions taken by the Bank of Ghana that has gone a long way to impact on the supply of dollars onto the market. One can talk about first the decision by the Bank of Ghana to direct the mining firms to auction their dollars to the commercial banks instead of the Bank of Ghana, strict enforcement of the forex regulations, and one last measure that has firmly stabilized things was central bank's decision to drastically change the way it auctioned dollars onto the market by moving from weekly to spot and planning to sell about $300 million every week to the commercial banks. Now, for the third quarter of this year, we saw the cedi come under some sustained pressure against the dollar, depreciating by some 14%. However, developments over the past 2 weeks shows that cedi is making some strong gains. The local currency, for instance, on the interbank market was trading as low as 11 Ghana cedis, 95 pesos, and as high as 12 Ghana cedis, 5 pesos. Now, these are the rates the commercial banks are selling among themselves, minus their markup prices and commissions before they trade with businesses and individuals on the opening market. It appears the good run is not only happening on the interbank market, but also forex bureaus.
And joining me on Zoom, economic analyst with DataBank Research, Wilson Zilevu. Good afternoon to you, Wilson. What's driving the cedi's recent strength?
Much, Darryl, and good afternoon to your viewers. So, what we can largely attribute to the improved performance of the cedi is that we've seen improved support from the Bank of Ghana. Previously, month-on-month support declined sharply, and that was exacerbated by seasonal demand pressures, which led to some slippages of the cedi in the past weeks. But currently, since the month of October, we've seen strong interventions by the central bank to meet demand head-on, and also the implementation of some regulatory actions to improve the flexibility on the market. And these are one of the major factors that have led to the strong performance that we are currently seeing. Not without mentioning expectations on the market. You do well know that expectations play a key role in how the trend of the cedi goes. So we see expectations fairly anchored based on the support from the central bank, and that has led to the positive run we are currently witnessing.
Yeah. How much of a factor is the commodity market playing in this? We know what's happening with gold. Prices have shot to record levels. Also, last week, the IMF passed Ghana on the 5th review. We're expecting some $385 million. How do these factor in the Cedi's performance?
Yes, so thank you very much once again. So basically, these commodity windfalls improve the reserves of the central bank. And that means that the central bank can intervene strongly on the market to meet demand. That also means that when it's able to meet demand head on, expectations or speculative attacks would reduce drastically, causing the cedi to strengthen further. So we expect the strong windfalls from gold because now we know gold has crossed the 40,000 mark. And that should mean that the gold board should be able to rake in more windfalls to support the central bank reserve to support the cedi. So in the long run, these commodity-backed windfalls and also the staff level agreements, which would ensure that if the board approves, would likely result in a disbursement of 385 million US dollars, as you rightfully mentioned, would go a long run to support the Bank of Ghana's reserve, which means that the Bank of Ghana can support demand pressures on the market, thereby causing the cedi to appreciate. So basically, these measures affect the cedi in a positive manner, and we expect the trend to continue.
All right. What next for businesses and investors? What should they be looking at as they plan going forward? What's the outlook for the cedi?
Okay, so our outlook for the cedi is first, our outlook hovered around cautious optimism, but currently we are very optimistic that the cedi would end the year strongly at around 12 Ghana cedis, 50 pesos, plus or minus 1 Ghana cedis. And this is because of the factors that we've recently discussed. Market watchers should expect a stronger cedi because bullish expectations should cause further appreciations of the cedi or stability. And also currently barring global trends and the current stalemate in the US economy, the softness of the dollar should also aid this positive trend. So basically, market watchers and participants should watch out for a stronger currency ahead.
All right. Thank you. We'll keep watching as well. Wilson Zilevu, economic analyst with Data Bank Research. While the Finance Minister, Dr. Cedi Recovery, is expected to engage development partners, donors, creditors, and investors in Washington, D.C. this week, he's leading Ghana's delegation to the annual meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund as part of ongoing efforts to strengthen international cooperation and support for Ghana's economic recovery. George Afe has more in this report.
Call it the biggest gathering of all those who matter in the finance, monetary, and governance space, and you might not be wrong. The annual IMF World Bank meetings, which formally opens in Washington, D.C., USA today, bringing together all those who matter in the financial space to deliberate on how to make the global financial system safe and benefit all. But for Ghana's Finance Minister, Dr. Atuforson, who is leading Ghana's delegation to this meeting, including Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, this meeting couldn't have come at a better time, looking at developments in Ghana's economy, including reaching a staff-level agreement with the IMF, possible conclusion of Ghana's program with the IMF in May next year, and an upgrade of Ghana's credit ratings. Over the course of the week, the Finance Minister, Dr. Atuforson, is expected to use this year's meetings to deepen strategic partnerships.
All right, and that's the marketplace. We're taking a short break. When we come back, we've got the exchange going on. And welcome back. A new landmark study is calling for a major shift in how investment funds are managed in Africa, revealing that nearly 60% of African-focused investment vehicles are domiciled outside the continent. Experts say this trend is starving local businesses, especially in countries like Ghana, of much-needed capital to support youth and women-led enterprises. The study aims to position African countries as competitive destinations for fund domiciliation And Ghana is among the key focus countries in the reform push. I'm joined on Zoom by Mame Tutua Datson, lead counsel, Start for Law, and a contributor to the study for today's exchange. Good afternoon to you. Great to have you. Can you walk us through some of the key findings from the study, especially those that relate directly to Ghana and its potential as a regional investment hub?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Daryl. Yeah, the study shows that Ghana already is established as and it has the characteristics of a regional investment hub. We have political stability, we have the professional capacity, and we have reform-driven regulation and strong geographic positioning. The report also identifies Ghana as part of the green tier of African jurisdictions, that is, countries with mature or near mature environments for fund domiciliation. So we're not doing great. We're not doing so bad. We are alongside Mauritius, Rwanda, Morocco, and South Africa, some of the more mature jurisdictions. We have a fairly strong investment and regulatory ecosystem. So Ghana is regarded as attractive investment destination with a rapidly expanding financial services sector, banking, insurance, microfinance, and fintech. Since 2004, Ghana has progressively strengthened its regulatory framework for private funds, and fund managers have also been supported with the required legislation. So recently, we've passed the law allowing REITs to be formed. We also have the crowdfunding regulations, and then we've enabled pension funds to invest up to 15%. I think it's been increased to 25% of their assets under management in alternative asset classes, which include private funds. So these reforms have opened up new channels for capital mobilization, and it's encouraging both local and foreign funds to domicile in Ghana.
Yeah.
So we're not doing too bad.
Yeah, so going forward, what must Ghana prioritize to attract more investment vehicles to domicile locally?
Yeah, there's still a bit of work to do, especially on the legislation side. So we need to enact a limited partnership and trust law. All over the world, investors are familiar with that structure. So having private equity funds and venture capital funds sitting within our company law structure is not working, and it's creating a lot of investor unfamiliarity, which makes them uncomfortable. So we need to widen the permissible fund structures to be able to attract diverse investors into Ghana. Also, we need to look at establishing an Accra International Financial Center. Our information is that there's been plans for a while to have this established, but this will help to create a financial free zone, which helps to create that dynamic investor-friendly business environment in which financial services can comfortably domicile. And then we'll see the movement of top-tier banks, HSBC, and all those big international banks coming in if we have that kind of structure here. We also have to align and coordinate our regulatory bodies. There's SEC, there's GIPC, there's ORC. There needs to be some more coordination so that investors don't feel like they are torn between different regulators. And then lastly, we need to also look at our tax incentives. Some of the countries that are taking the lead, Mauritius, Rwanda, have very attractive tax incentives. We are trying. We've had a few tax incentives for private funds, but we can do better so that we can be competitive. The key is intentionality. We have to put some intentionality to our policies and our actions.
Also, there is concern MSMEs, especially youth and women-led businesses, fall into a financing gap. How exactly would local domiciliation of funds help close that gap?
This goes to the very heart of the study that we did. So the study explored the fact that there's a connection between local domiciliation and solving the MSE financing gap, especially for women and youth-led enterprises. So it links the location of the fund to accessibility to capital, and then also the ecosystem development. Now, what happens is that smaller funds get lost in. Smaller ticket sizes and smaller companies really get lost because the big investors are not interested in investing in them. So when you have the funds domiciled in the country, you get these smaller size funds, which will do the smaller ticket items, and it helps to unlock funding for these overlooked sectors of the economy and also the MSMEs. but also they're closer. Locally domiciled funds are closer to the entrepreneurs, and they understand the local realities and the cultural and legal issues. So it's easier for them to invest in MSMEs because of that understanding. And they're also able to tailor blended finance instruments and flexible financing instruments that are more suited to the youth and women-led businesses, unlike the larger funds that are that are not flexible like that. Also, it helps them to offer mentorship and capacity building when they are domiciled here. And so they're able to handhold some of the early stage and women-led businesses that require mentorship and capacity building. So overall, local domiciliation helps so that the ecosystem is able to be connected together, and then ultimately the financing gap for women and youth-led businesses and MSMEs will be filled if we encourage that.
Talk to us about the biggest legal or regulatory barriers currently preventing investment vehicles from setting up in Ghana.
The major one now is really the Limited Partnerships Act. It's become a major issue. And at the moment, practitioners are struggling to structure funds that will return capital to investors. And investors want their capital to be returned. They don't want permanent capital locked in forever. So that is a major issue that we need to surmount. My understanding is that the Ministry of Finance has said that we will have that law by next year, and we're really looking forward to it. Because what it does is that the investors' familiarity with the jurisdiction will be greatly improved. Also, I see that there's a lot of collaboration between the ORC now and all the other stakeholders involved in company regulation. And that's a good step because that fragmentation causes a lot of frustration for investors. And we've seen investors very exasperated about having to deal with multiple regulators. And also, if we look at our tax, we need to have a look at that as well, because if we want to be intentional about attracting fund domiciliation in Ghana, we need to give something. And therefore, we have to look at some tax incentives as well. And then also, we look at other countries like Mauritius, Rwanda. They have all these incentives to make sure that businesses are comfortable and happy to domicile in that jurisdiction while also doing business in the rest of Africa. So Pan-African funds want a place to domicile that is comfortable for them. And then we need to provide the enabling environment for that as well.
And how can Ghana balance the need to attract international funds with maintaining robust regulatory oversight and financial stability?
Yeah, that's a big issue now because we're looking at our SEC licensing process takes up to 6 months, and everybody's complaining because we want them to license quicker. But they also have to balance their risk. I would say that we should look at making it easy for companies and funds to do the right thing. Have the structures in place, have digital licensing structures. We clear the gateway, but we also need to make it hard for those who want to do the wrong thing to do that. And therefore, we have to put in the mechanisms for oversight, transparency, reporting, and all that. But implementing the policies that would open up the jurisdiction, have an international financial center and all that, helps to coordinate the oversight. And it gives Ghana that credible way to attract investors.
Well, my final question, beyond policy changes, what role can Ghanaian legal, financial, and corporate professionals play in positioning Ghana as a competitive investment destination?
Yeah, so professionals like lawyers, accountants, fund managers, investment bankers, and corporate advisors, we are the connective tissue to the ecosystem. So we are critical at helping the local funds, supporting them with services that as they grow. So professionals can advocate for reform in tax, licensing, and fund regulation. We can also serve as a unified voice in policy dialogues with the SEC, GIPC, and all the regulators. Also, we can partner with regulators to co-develop guidelines that align with international standards. And then we can help to enhance Ghana's visibility, because visibility of investors to investors is very important. So we can also attend conferences and showcase the case studies and demonstrate that Ghana's legal system is predictable and it's mature and is resilient.
All right, thank you so much, Mami Tutuas Datson, who is lead counsel, Stafford Law, also a contributor to the study we've been talking about. Grateful for your time here on the marketplace. Appreciate it. Before we do Money Lab, let's read this over. President John Mahama has disclosed that Ghana and China are finalizing a zero tariff agreement expected to be concluded by the end of this month. This will ensure that goods of Ghanaian origin entering China will not attract import duties. Speaking at a presidential forum in Beijing, President Mahama confirmed that both countries have reached an understanding towards the implementation of the agreement. China says the extension of its zero tariff policy to all African nations, including Ghana, is aimed at strengthening diplomatic and economic cooperation, boosting Africa's economy, and helping the continent negotiate fairer trade terms globally. And so that's what we are monitoring from China for you, where President Mahama is right now. And that's it for Marketplace. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for watching. Money Lab up next.
Hi, welcome to Money Lab. My name is Paul Mante, MD of EDC Investment Limited. The past few weeks we have been discussing personal finance, and today I want you to reflect on this thing called salary. Salary is the medicine for managing poverty. It does not cure poverty. It's only a business or an investment that cures poverty. If you don't find a way to make your money work for you while you are asleep, you are likely to keep working at the time you have to be sleeping. Because you see, if your salary is your only source of income, you are a step away from poverty. The least you can do is to invest to create an additional source of income. So salary is important, but it's not enough. Beyond salary, let's think about how we can use investment to create additional source of income. Many thanks for making time for Money Lab. Remember, financial independence is possible.